Hey everybody, Brian Germain here. We're going to do a virtual jump into Skydive San Diego, and I'm going to go ahead and set the winds right now where there's just a little bit of wind, not too much, so maybe let's do 8 knots. Sure, that's fine. Upper winds should be higher to reflect reality, and if that's where we're going to be landing right here, then we should exit over here, set entry point, right? So in SkydiVR terms, entry point means where you enter the simulation. So I'm gonna, I'll keep it quite a ways out there so we can kind of play around a little bit. Now, the drawing mode is kind of a cool thing. It's something I haven't really shown off yet in the past. So if we intend to land, let's say, here, and the final approach, is something like this, base leg maybe something like that, and then downwind, right? And so this is an approximation to show a student how you kind of want to fly the pattern. I think it's very helpful to start off with Google Maps so that you can actually look at the dimensionality, right? So what are the lengths of each of these legs? Based on the winds, you can create a pretty good model, and then you draw it on here, and that's something that you can bring up during the simulation or remove it as you prefer. So that's pretty darn cool. So let's get this simulation started. There we go. I have to reset the view. So if you do have to reset the view, on the Oculus, you click on there's a home key that's sort of a flat one in your right hand. And you click that, and then you hit the reset view. You don't reset the view in SkydiVR, although it does say that there's an R key that works. It doesn't. Just a heads up. At this point, anyway, it doesn't work. So I'm just sort of looking around, getting a lay of the land, just like I would if I was sitting in the door of an airplane. And I can see the drop zone off to my left. So let's start the simulation. You squeeze everything all at once to kind of mash the keys, and it seems to start it off nicely. Do a controllability check of the canopy, and let us fly. So it looks like it's, wow, beautiful place to jump, right? And so right now I'm going to sort of point towards the drop zone, and I'm going to look at my ground speed and look at the target, and if I look at the target long enough, I'll see that the target is actually dropping a little bit in my frame. So that may be easy enough for some of you to see. However, one of the things that I can do as the instructor is show both landing point and ground position. So if I look straight down, I can see where I am and where I'm moving to. And if I look forward, way up there in the mountains, that's where I would land if I didn't turn. If I apply brakes, I will go even further. Right, you can see that. And if I was to turn the canopy, let's say 90 degrees to the wind line, I can see where I'm moving to. And I can see where I would be landing. If I apply brakes on this heading, watch that green spot. All right, so there we go. You can see that I'm sliding more to the right. I'm going a little bit further downrange. If I was to face into the wind, I know I can get away with this right now because I already checked a run, in other words, going in the tailwind configuration. So that's where I would land if I'm facing into the wind and I just keep flying this way. Obviously, if I apply some brakes, it will shorten the distance. So the way I drew the downwind basin final was a left-hand traffic pattern, but looking at this now, I don't think that's such a good idea, is it? Because there's a runway. So I haven't jumped at Skydive San Diego before, but I'm going to say, looking at it, I definitely want to. Most drop zones prefer that you not fly over the runway, 2,000 feet now, upwind of the target. They don't want you flying over the runway when you're down low. So I'm going to fly instead a right-hand traffic pattern, doing one more ground winds check. And of course, in the simulator, I know what I did. Right? I know that I programmed it to have pretty reasonable winds. By now, it's probably 10 miles an hour or something like that at this altitude. And so I'm going to stay on the upwind side of things until I get down a little bit lower. I can fly, on this one I'm just going to fly a standard downwind leg, more or less over this road. And so I know that there is enough wind, looking for the traffic, right? I know there's enough wind that I can get back from a long ways. So if I stayed upwind for too long or too far, it would be easy enough to just float in the brakes. So right now, as I start this downwind leg, kind of over the buildings, and I don't know what their policies are. And you have to be careful with the VR. Sometimes the target itself is not where the drop zone management wants you to land. So that's an important concept. But I think it's really wonderful that you can fly and approach into a drop zone that you've never been to before, and sort of get a familiarity of what things look like. So 300 feet. I'm going to pivot to final approach. Let's see if it's going to work. Looks like this is perfectly acceptable, and I wouldn't get in trouble for flying that approach. Not too shabby. All right, so I'm going to stop the simulation here, and sort of, all right, I'm a little bit short of the target. Gives me an idea of how I could adjust that. So if I was to then rewind, increase my altitude, and then rethink how I fly that approach. Just a little bit. So I may not go quite so far downwind. The other thing I could possibly do here is cut it in even closer to the target and actually use some brakes. The thing is, if you've got traffic, using brakes to fix your approach helps you, but not everybody else. So if you don't want to get into a canopy collision, I recommend not flying a braked approach. But if I look around, oh, there's some traffic up there, so let's be smart about it. Let the canopy fly. If I overshoot, I overshoot. Looks like I'm not going to overshoot anyway. And eyes forward, flare symmetrically, and that's pretty good. 7 feet, yeah. Nice. Now, of course, once you land, remember, you've got to collapse your parachute and turn around and look behind you, right? Because if I continue to look into the wind, I'm not looking at the oncoming traffic, right? See that guy up there? He's coming. He's going to land right here. So I'm going to want to face this direction as I collect my canopy, right? Looking for the oncoming traffic, because people do get seriously hurt just standing in the landing area. Don't let it be you. That was cool. Welcome to Skydive San Diego. Let's go find another drop zone. Let's land at Statue of Liberty. All right, so I'm going to set the winds now. And so I'm going to do my approach so that I'm coming in this way. Yeah. So one of the fun things about this is that you can create the ideal situations where you are flying the approach pattern in the heading that you want to. Okay, and so let's draw mode once again. Probably something like downwind, base, and final approach, more or less. You get the idea. All right, let's do this thing. Okay, so spot-wise, looks like I'm right over the target. Wow, you can really, it looks so real here. It's absolutely incredible. So I've got canopy traffic below me. I opened higher than everybody else. I opened to 5,000 feet, so I shouldn't have too much traffic to worry about. Looking at that smoke, right, I don't know why. I thought I spotted myself upwind of the target, but I didn't. So I'm going to stay over the Statue of Liberty for right now and look around, facing into the wind, right? If I was to go with the flow, as it were, and continue downwind, I probably wouldn't be able to make it back. So I'm just going to keep on keeping on here. And maybe we can add some tools, the landing point and the ground position. I think that both of these are extremely helpful for teaching people how to operate this. So that's, I would land over there, kind of in front of me. If I apply brakes, it would be shortening the distance. There we go. So straight down in brakes. Little heading change. So you can see that heading bug, the white thing sort of spinning around. It's because I'm kind of holding my position pretty well, which means that if I come a little bit closer to the target, no big deal, right? It's just that if I get too far that way, it's going to be very slow to penetrate. Here, I've got my hands all the way up, and I'm not moving very far. My glide ratio is about, it's a little worse than a 45-degree angle, right? So 45-degree angle equals a 1-to-1 glide. Cool. So there's your New York skyline. I mean, you have to admit, they did an amazing job in creating this thing at Ellis Island, Staten Island. Wow. Okay, so 3,000 feet. I've got canopies beneath me. I'm not worried about them. I've already tallied all 5 down there, what we call robot canopies. And what's cool about those other parachutes is that they are actually simulations from the past. So in other words, those are real people that you'll be able to fly around, and if you open at a more normal altitude, you might actually find yourself running into them if you're not looking around, which I think is amazing. The desktop version of this is not as good for in-air awareness of traffic. So just keep that in mind. Is that one of the reasons I think this is such a fantastic training tool is when you put on the VR goggles, whether it's the Oculus or the Rift or whatever, you get used to looking around and everything's sort of smoother. If you watch the way my hand moves, this is my actual hand, right? As opposed to the desktop version, which, you know, if it's all you have, totally fine. But if you fly the desktop version, you're using keys on your keyboard to adjust. And so it will fly the parachute. It will teach you, the key concepts. But it's not going to have this fluid motion to the toggles. All right, so I'm going to turn in a little bit early. If I was really doing the demo like this, I would probably hang out and look for traffic. Nobody's here. S-turn. And okay, 500 feet. So I turned in even earlier than I would have in real life. All right, so I'm going to have to go outside the pattern a little bit to the left. I don't see anybody near me, so I'm okay. 300 feet. I know that my glide ratio is not going to be a 2.5 to 1. There we go. Look at that. Hello, lady. All right. So it looks like this would be acceptable. Watch the trees, right? Look how real that is. Isn't it amazing? Nice. Flare and land. Rockstar. Cool, right? Wonderful. Thanks for joining.
As long as you're having fun, well, do everything.